is everyone today? Today, Violet has asked us to start clue number 1 for our online mystery. Before we get started, we need to gather our supplies. You want to make sure that you have your sewing machine set up and ready to sew. Also, be sure to wind some extra bobbins. It's nothing more frustrating than running out right in the middle of a project. Be sure to have your scissors. A small pair of scissors is the best thing to use for little projects like this. A cutting mat with a small ruler and a rotary cutter. Be sure that your blade is sharp and ready to go. Also, make sure you have an ironing station with an iron set on the hottest setting. We'll need a seam ripper, just in case, some pins for pinning, and a few scraps for starting and stopping our seams. Now what we want to do is gather our clue number 1 baggie. Remember how we showed you to cut all these and put them in bags? Just take clue number 1. Don't dip into any of the other bags because the instructions for today are just for clue number 1. In the bag, you're going to have your strips of fabric number 1 and fabric color number 3. These are based on the colors you've selected for your online mystery quilt. Take one of each of the strips, color number 1 and color number 3, and we're going to put them right sides together. It's really not necessary that we pin these, but if you're more comfortable pinning your strips, you certainly can do that. Be sure that the right sides are together and the raw edge of the fabric is nice and even. Now before we start sewing any project, we should always start and stop our sewing with a scrap, or what we like to call a cheater piece. A cheater piece is simply a small leftover piece of fabric. I'm sure you all have plenty of those. And we put it anywhere underneath our machine, and it just gives us a chance to make sure that our machine is sewing well. Once we have our cheater piece sewn, be sure to leave about a 1/4 inch gap. And now we can begin to sew our strip sets. Remember, right sides together, nice even edges. The quilt we're making uses all 1/4 inch seams. Take your time when sewing your strips. Pause every few inches and make sure that your raw edges are still neatly together. You will need to sew 5 strip sets as shown. Now once we've sewn all of our strip sets together, what we're going to do is learn to press these. I like to chain my strip sets out the back of my sewing machine, and you can just use your snips to separate those chains. We want to take our strip sets to our ironing station, and I like to make sure that the stitch is away from me. Also, be sure to put the darkest fabric facing up. In this case, it's my green. Using a hot iron, set the stitch. And this simply means that we're holding the iron in place and allowing the heat of the iron to set that stitch that we've sewn. Setting the stitch means that we're taking the cotton thread and adding heat to it. Cotton thread being round, once we put heat to it, it flattens out. It eliminates bulk. And in quilting, we are always trying to eliminate bulk. Be sure to set the stitch all the way down the entire end. Now, using our fingertips, we're going to fold our dark fabric away from us. Be sure not to let the strip flip back or spring back, and be sure not to accidentally press in a fold. Do this step with all of your completed strip sets. Now that we've sewn and pressed all of our strip sets, it's now time to subcut our strip sets into the proper unit size. First, we want to make sure we lay our strip set on our cutting mat using any straight line as a guide. Also, be sure not to let the extra weight of the strip set to hang off the table. We don't want anything pulling away from us as we're working. Using any of the horizontal lines of our ruler, line it up and cut off the uneven edge or the salvage of your strip set. Then we will be cutting 2-inch wide units from the strip set. The units that you'll be cutting should look like this. You will need to cut 96 units, just like this one. Once you have your units cut, we then can match them up in groups of 2. Be sure that you're alternating the color. We are creating a 4-patch. Because we're just simply spinning this around, the seams will automatically be going in the right direction. You can either use pins for this step, or you can just hold it in place. Nest the 2 seams so that it's nice and flat and smooth right here. If you like to pin, just place a pin in the spine of the seam, as shown. Using our sewing machine, set up again for a 1/4-inch stitch. First, sew our cheater piece through. This helps prevent thread from coming out of the needle. It also ensures that our machine is still threaded properly and sewing correctly before we start. You can continue to chain these just as you did with your strip sets. This will be what it looks like once you've sewn it. Now we're going to teach you a little trick. Whenever you're doing a 4-patch, a great way to help eliminate bulk is to spiral the center seam right here. In order to do that, we're going to zoom the camera in just a little closer. You want to place your fingers on either side of the stitch, and we're going to give just a gentle little twist. Then, when we go to actually press this, we're going to lay it with the wrong side facing up. And I'm going to take my fingers and help the seam. Part of it's going to come towards me, and the other half is going to be pressed away from me. We'll zoom in again in just a second to show you what it looks like. From this distance though, what you're looking to achieve is a miniature little 4-patch right in the center. This helps to eliminate bulk in our blocks that we're going to be creating. Once you have created your 4 patches, you can press them all this direction. You will need to complete 48 of this unit. 48 4 patches are what you'll be making for clue number 1. If you should have any questions or not understand the instructions we've shared with you today, feel free to call us at 757-547-2552 or visit us here in the shop at 701 North Battlefield, Chesapeake, Virginia. Again, if you have any questions or aren't sure exactly how to do a step, feel free to come in and we'll be glad to assist you. Be sure to watch for clue number 2. You have about a week to get all of clue number 1 complete. Thanks and have a blessed day.